What if all the technology already existed? What if it already existed for thousands of years and has just been getting re-released intervally? What I mean is, you know, in Indiana Jones 5, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, how there was that warehouse that had rack after rack after rack of all kinds of artifacts and special technologies of the past all stored there. You know, I heard that theory about Tartaria, how Tesla really wasn't inventing anything. He just had access to the information from the Tartarian civilization and just presented it as his own. Not to knock Tesla, but you know, you hear these theories, you see the Tartaria theory, you wonder how Tesla did it all, and then put it all together and you're like, All the rage is about ChatGPT right now. But look at ELIZA. ELIZA was, I think, declassed in 1965. I always bring it up because I used it in 3rd grade. Now, it wasn't as good as ChatGPT, but they had it. It was, they've been working, okay, Alan Turing has been doing AI since the 1930s. Imagine what they got. It's time to release strategic releases. The atom bomb was in the 1930s and 1940s. The F-117 stealth bomber was declassified around 1988, 89, 1990. Batman's plane. You remember watching Independence Day? The stealth bombers were in the movie. That advanced plane existed way back then. It was revealed in the 80s. Who knows how long they had it? I mean, think about it. Nazis had flying saucers in the 30s. Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage invent computer algorithms in the 1800s before computers existed. John von Neumann. Just look him up from the 1930s. And one of the biggest events. Okay, just look up Automaton, the writer. They had robots in the 1700s before electricity. They had robots in France before the French Revolution. How do you have robots before you have electricity? I mean, yeah. And then you got these guys like Victor Schauberger figuring out these vortexes with water and all kinds of, and then applying it. Having the thought to think, I wonder if I take the vortex that happens in the water and apply it to the dirt. I still haven't found out what the real deal is with Wilhelm von Reich. Wilhelm Reich with his orgone energy. Was it just some like weird sex machine, or was there some reality to it? Why was he thrown in prison? I mean, was he just doing some weirdo stuff with people that should be in prison? Or was there some real, thing to it? Why are people being in prison for inventing and releasing forbidden technology? Well, I guess that one is self-explanatory, but why isn't anybody saying anything? Why isn't people talking about Stan Meyer all the time? Some people, but not all people. Normies don't talk about Stan Meyer and his water-powered car. All right, but just I gave you all those examples just to say this. Imagine if all the technology was invented, not just 100 years ago like we think, but we're talking, just imagine our world is not what we think it is, that it's been here forever. Forever. When I say forever, I don't mean that there's like a beginning or even a big bang. I mean, what if the world has been here forever? And there's some people, either that they could live forever, that they've lived here forever and ever, or that they found all the old tech, and kept it in places like, the underground of the Vatican, or what was the other place I was naming? Oh yeah, that warehouse 54. And if all the tech has, because there's this card from the INWO series, and it bothers me. It's bothered me before I even saw the card. I knew of the card. It's knowledge that mankind was not meant to know. And ever since I was like 2, I wanted that knowledge that mankind was not meant to know. And it's almost like, when you look around, they've removed all of the food from existence. You read these old books from the 1800s, and food, trees that had food on it, plants that had food on it were like everywhere. So if you wanted to go on a long journey, you wonder, how could people travel these long distances? Migration patterns before they had cars, when they were all on horsebacks. There wasn't grocery stores and fast food restaurants every 10 miles. How could they survive? Well, I mean, there is the Oregon Trail where you had to go shoot some cows and whatnot. But if food is plentiful and everywhere before the age of artificial scarcity, well, yeah, then you could travel anywhere you wanted to go, because, hey, you need some food, just go up to this bush here and pluck off something to eat. But if you are in the enclosement, what is it called? The enclosure movement, where everything becomes property, and that's not me knocking on capitalism, that's me knocking artificial scarcity. You have to remove all of the abundant things from society, because how else could you commoditize it and charge for something that is made abundant and plentiful? You couldn't. So now everything that was once abundant is removed. Dude, what? Cactus are so different from all the other plants. Cactus. So when I think of the tech that may already exist, and as I see it released, and oh boy, aren't you happy that you got this new such and such tech? It reminds me of the scene from Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Part 2, when Neo's on the bench with the Oracle, and she asks him if he wants a piece of candy, and he's like, "You already know my answer." Why are you even asking? Hey, I'm just wondering, when you first saw this video kick in, where you're like, oh, hell yeah, John's on his walk. This is going to be one of those John's on a walk videos. But then there's also, instead of the world existing forever and ever and all the technology coming built in and getting released in a time fashion, maybe released by checkpoints, kind of like 2001 Space Odyssey, when they get to the monoliths, it indicates to the aliens that, humans have gotten to some certain evolution. All right, there's that. Or there's also the fact that, there might be like an administration team that releases stuff, or like in Zelda, when you get to a certain point in the game, you achieve the power bracelet and whatnot. But then there's another option. And that option is, let's say none of this existed till I put the cartridge in, or maybe you, but maybe you just exist in my video game. And so, yeah, there's a history to the world, but maybe that history really didn't exist. Kind of like, to get an idea, Zelda 3, Link to the Past. You wake up, you're in the kingdom of Hyrule. There's a castle. There's the whole world of Hyrule. So it's all there. There's people in villages that they all exist, and you interact with them when you get to them, and then you interact with them. But it was all pre-programmed in. So, maybe the world didn't start until 1979 when I came into it, and the history of all the stuff is just written in by the programmer. None of it actually happened. So I'm not even going to be able to finish that thought, because after saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, well, most of history is a lie anyway. And not, when I say most of history is a lie, I don't mean it like the people that just want to throw history away. I'm saying it more of like, hey, everybody agrees that history is written by the victors. Okay? Everybody agrees to that. But then when you say, yeah, so that would mean that history's a lie. No, it's not, it's real. It's like, well, hold on, you just said that history is written by the victors. Oh, yeah, it was. Of course, yeah, the victors went right to history. Okay. So then they wrote the history the way they wanted it to be. And then you wonder, why they kept certain characters in the history. And then you wonder, why did, a lot of these kingdoms just completely destroy histories? It's like they get so mad, they're like, we're just going to wipe this whole piece of history away. And then some artifacts survive. Artifacts, the art of making facts. Whenever I hear about archaeology discoveries, you know what I think of? The first thing I think of is the scene from Big Lebowski when the dude says, but they cut her toe off. They cut her toe off, Walter. And Walter's like, amateurs. You want a toe? Shit, I'll get you a toe by 3 o'clock. Come on, man. You said it yourself. She kidnapped herself, dude. And what that means, metaphorically, is they buried those artifacts and found them. The only thing that I wonder with that theory is, So who are the people that create these like old looking artifacts? You know, if the theory of everything was just buried and then discovered, like, oh boy, look, we just found this pottery, this ancient pottery. Oh yeah, well that means that they were a hunter and gathering civilization that had some forms of agriculture. And they just made it all up, dude. And then like, oh yeah, let's make these people believe that the world's only been here for 6,000 years, or the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's make it believe that it's been here for 4.5 billion years, but human civilization only about 10,000. Oh yeah, the Asians crossed the Bering Strait over into the Americas when the Bering Strait was a land structure. Also, something that a lot of people get hung up on in philosophy class, even the Matrix, what is free will? And the way I explain free, because there's some people that want to say you don't have any free will, and some people want to say, oh no, I got free will. God gave me free will. I don't even, like, that argument's just kind of like, the way to look at it is you have both. Usually Dual Legacy is the name of my company. There's always the yin yang, there's always two sides of the same coin. It's kind of like in, I hope I don't forget my train of thought here, but it made me think of Heat, the movie Heat with De Niro and Pacino. And in the movie, Pacino's sitting down with De Niro because they're like enemies, but they're having like a gentleman's coffee. And Pacino's the cop, and he's trying to like seem like a badass to De Niro, who's the gangster. And he's like, yeah, we're having a nice convo here, but don't think for a moment that if, you were coming around the corner that I wouldn't hesitate to put one in you. And De Niro's kind of like, okay there, tough guy. There's a little flip side to that coin. Don't think that if we turn those corners that it wouldn't be me that pop one in you. So, free will, no free will, predetermination, whatnot. Here's my metaphor. Okay. The game Super Mario Brothers. The whole game is programmed. It's on a cartridge. You choose to pop the cartridge into the video game system, into the Nintendo. Whether or not you complete the game is your free will. But the levels from 1-1 to 8-4 are all predetermined. Now, you could use those pipe tunnel time warps to go from level 1-2 all the way up to level 4-3, and then use the next time warp to get to 8-1 without playing throughout the whole game. So there's time warps, there's ways to hop levels, but ultimately you got to beat Bowser in the end to rescue the princess. And if you decide to quit, that's your choice. If you decide to play it through, that's also your choice. But there was a book that I read when I was like 19 for school. It was for a course. It was the course, this course changed everything for me. The name of the course was Behavior Modification and Environmental Selection. Bro, this was the best college. This course warped my fragile little mind. And not only that, I wish I would have applied myself even further, because I had access to the instructor and he was going to show me how far the rabbit hole goes, but I just couldn't get out of bed in time. It's a song by Amy Allen. It's I'd Start a Revolution If I Could Get Up in the Morning. But the title of this book was called Beyond Freedom and Dignity by B.F. Skinner. Now, B.F. Skinner is the one that is the psychologist that invented behaviorism, and many of the corporations utilized his tests and studies to apply to their employees and whatnot. And he did experiments on people and, conditioned. He wrote a book called Walden 2, which I think I am good. You know what? Maybe I created an AI voice, by the way, of myself. So maybe I'll use that to narrate Beyond Freedom and Dignity. And I'm going to create some additional voices, because the one I used, I had to read a really boring script. It was from like the Discovery Channel, Planet Earth, and there's really no like inflections, there's no difference in pitch. It's just kind of like me reading a real boring script. And so the AI generated, it's kind of boring. So I'm not going to read another one. I'm just going to find another video I made that has a long enough and where I like the variation in tones. and then try that out. See if that'll actually work. See if the system will actually accept that. But yeah, Beyond Freedom and Dignity. In the book, I don't remember it. I was 19. But I remember, what I do remember is he's like, you know, freedom and dignity, it's something that people like to tell themselves they have to feel good about themselves. But ultimately, no matter what, even if you're a billionaire, you're still susceptible to the viruses out there. You have to breathe. Every human has to breathe oxygen. And every human is still vulnerable to the 6 million ways to die. Choose one. And you're bound by gravity. Well, for the most part, I guess you could create anti-gravity, but your natural state, you're bound to the laws of nature. And I think the breathing part and the sleeping part were some things. He's like, yo, you're not as free as you think. You still need to eat. You still need to do all these requirements of the body, which takes your freedom away. And then I think his experimentation, he was, you know, you hear about the experiments on animals, conditioning, that's Pavlov and all that. But when you do the experiments on humans and you see how humans are just as predictable as the animals are, you start to kind of be like, yeah, you really got freedom and dignity there, guy. You're just flowing in the path of least resistance, just like the electricity. Well, I didn't plan to be inspired like this, and I'm all out of my little water. I didn't anticipate doing this. I would have brought more water. But without water, my mouth gets real dry. So I'm gonna have to wrap this thing up here. And I'll say this, the whole point, the concept that came to my mind was, what if when civilizations conquered other civilizations, they hid all the technology? So you go in, you conquer a civilization, you erase their history, but keep all the technology that they had, but keep it in the hands of the few, and then release pieces of it out to the masses over time in controlled releases. And perhaps that's where we're at. You know, who knows? Because, you know, I see things like the compact disc and the CD player, and I'm like, and the DVD, I'm like, man, this is some, who would have thought? Or like even floppy disks, it's like, who would have thought this would have been possible? Or a record, like who would have thought that would have worked? Or even photography. And then you see the stuff like those robots from the 1700s. Once you see, you know, there's things you see and it just unlocks your brain. You're like, dude, robots before electricity. And then you see ChatGPT, you're like, dude, how long have they had this? Because like we're getting like version, the jump from Siri to ChatGPT is like, what? But on top of that though, as I said, in like 2002, I've said this on plenty of videos, but on KurzweilAI.net, they had this thing, they had a AI chat avatar called Ramona, and it was way smarter than Siri back in 2002. And then we got Siri, and it's like they turned off Ramona. Like you didn't see Ramona after Siri was made. You like wonder if Apple bought out Ramona and was like, yo, let's shelve Ramona so that Siri could have a life. And then here we are, 2023, right when iPads and everything kind of die out, iPhones kind of like hit maturity, they hit us with ChatGPT. But man, I'm telling you, this tech has been around for a long time. And that quantum computer stuff, like why would they tell you about the quantum computer if they didn't already create it? I guess it's like, well, so what's the point, John? The point is demand the tech, realize that we're living in a limited reality, and maybe it was all invented, not just hundreds of years ago, potentially thousands, potentially tens of thousands of years ago. Question, you know, how long was the world here? And if it was here forever, what does that mean? Yeah, no, so I'm saying that the Apple iPhone may have been invented 7,000 years ago by some ancient civilization. And perhaps the reason why all those hieroglyphics show future technology is because all that future technology isn't future technology, it's ancient technology. And perhaps the reason there's compartmentalization in secret projects isn't to keep the secrets isolated or to keep knowledge of the full project isolated, but not the primary reason. Maybe it's to make the humans believe that they're the ones that are inventing the technology so as to never discover that it's just repeated technology. And so that if anybody questions that, hey, maybe all this stuff is just recycled from millenniums ago, you could have the engineers come out and say, no, I worked on a secret project with secret clearance. And I worked on that project. I know it was real. Look at that sun. Look at that sun. Look at it set, even though we know it's not setting. But look how low it is. Look how low it is. It's not even in the sky. I don't think I've even fully grasped the freak show it is if we're really not revolving around the sun and the sun and the moon are just going about the sky and we're in this big giant machine and the sun and the moon are part of the machine, and that yin and the yang was trying to tell us something, and that analemma that they drew, can you imagine what the ancients must have thought, seeing the same pattern go in that circuit infinity symbol over and over again? Yeah, in a way, it's kind of easier to take thinking that we're on a revolving ball in complete empty open space, somehow traveling around the sun, which is also traveling around the Milky Way, with the moon going around us while we go around the sun, while the sun goes around the Milky Way. I mean, really, think about the 3D space aspect. Oh, and the reason why there's the analemma is because the Earth is tilted on its axis. Yeah, the Earth, it's in space. It's a ball. It's not sitting on anything. It's just a ball in space. I'm not trying to do this FE stuff on you guys. I just saw the sun set, and yeah, I'm like, hey, it's if we're not on a spinning ball and the sun is going around the sky in the same pattern for potentially millions of years, the same pattern, we're in a machine. We're in a machine. We're in a realm. A machine! You know what's most amusing though is a whole bunch of people now are seeing all the AI tech, the Midjourney, DALL-E, and then whatever ChatGPT can do, all the AI, and they're wondering like, how are we gonna know it's gonna be real? How are we gonna know the AI is gonna fool us? We're not gonna know what's what. I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm waiting for them to ask, how long have they been fooling us? Because AI has existed since the 1930s. On the surface, potentially longer. As I said earlier, the robots were in the 1700s before electricity. Eliza was declassed in 1965. You watch World on a Wire. That was in the 70s, the movie. Based on a book, I think, from the 60s. And then, dude, do this. Pause this video and go look up the titles of all the books that John von Neumann published. I mentioned him earlier. Look up John von Neumann book, the book titles. So yeah, and then look at Simone, the movie Simone, where it's Al Pacino is, I guess, Ray Kurzweil, showing you that he created a fake celebrity, and the whole world believes the celebrity is real. You got the movie The Congress that I always talk about. You got Transcendence that I always talk about. So these movies were suggesting to you that the illusion, and we're talking like years ago, not now, not in 2023 with ChatGPT or 2022 with the AI that you've been told about now publicly. See, that's the other part. I made that video, God, like, I think 4 years ago now. It's called, You Were Given Permission to Discuss These Topics. It's like people won't, I've been talking about the AI forever, and now they talk about it, now that they've been given permission. And now that they've been given permission, now all these thoughts are coming to their mind. No, only the thoughts that they've been trained to have. Not, hey, how long have they been doing this? How long have they had this tech? How do I know everything I saw on TV? Dating, but do you remember the 9/11 conspiracies way back when? Because it's been 22 years. 9/11's almost 22 years old. But you remember they kept saying, oh yeah, it was holograms. Like when I say they, I mean, there was a ton, not the TV, but the gazillion different conspiracy theories. One of the ones that was not dominant, but always hung around was that, oh yeah, no airplanes hit it. It was a complete illusion. It was a complete hologram. And then you see the movie Spider-Man Far From Home with Mysterio, and he could create complete believable holograms that look real. And you know, the one that was propagating the hologram thing, it was Judy Wood, but John Lear was like always pumping it. And there's a video of John Lear that he said that in the 90s, he was in a conference room, and there was a guy giving a presentation, and he's like, it was a real boring presentation, but at the end the guy completely disappeared to show that the whole presentation was actually about holograms, and that everybody in the room believed that the guy that was there was actually physically there. And this is in the 90s. And then you hear the stories. Do you remember the stories of the original Gulf War, 91, Desert Storm? That the way they got the 500,000 people to surrender, it wasn't from all the firepower, but it was from some kind of hologram. I mean, that's the conspiracy theory, is that they were shown some kind of like religious hologram that, you know, was with advanced tech, and that's what got everybody to surrender. I don't know. I mean, these are just the stories you hear, but the point is that it's not, oh boy, what is the AI gonna do? If you're asking what's AI gonna be like in the future, you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking, how long? We're not talking like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. We're talking decades, potentially centuries. So, because think about this, Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage, they invented computer algorithms supposedly in the 1800s before computers. By the way, there's a term I want you guys to look up. I don't know if it's all been scrubbed, but like decades ago when I used to try to look up AI, stuff about AI, there was always this excuse of why AI stopped, okay? And it was because, the reason, it was because of AI winter. And these AI winters would periodically break out and be the cause to stop all AI research. It will cause it all to stop. AI winter. AI winter. I mean, that's literally, I'm gonna look it up when I get home. Just you know, now that knowing what we know now, what the heck was AI winter? And it was always given like tongue in cheek. Oh yeah, we were moving real far on AI, and then we went through another period of AI winter. You know, they showed us HAL in 1969. Is that when 2001 Space Odyssey came out? Or 68? Ha! HAL in 68. In case you're upset that I'm so cavalier and tongue-in-cheek joking about all this, I just want to remind you, in 1980, when I was an infant, I had direct, non-stop communication with another dimension. They literally would talk to me all the time. So anyway, I'm thirsty. I'm real thirsty, guys. So I'm gonna call it a day. It's good talking to you. I hope being all over the place was amusing and not distracting. But the concept is, what if all the tech is just released on a time schedule? And it was all already invented hundreds of years, centuries, if not millenniums ago. And we're just using recycled concepts that were hoarded and then revealed over time. May the force be with you, and I'll see you next time.